Hello again. So, in this session, we're going to go through a variety of different things. And I thought it would be nicer and probably easier for you to take it in if I had some on screen prompts or some just simple pictures and writing and things just to kind of help you to absorb and take in what I'm talking about today in today's lecture. So, we're going to be talking, as I say, about a variety of different things, but we're going to start off with finding the observer. Now, this is crucial for meditation because this is the part of us that we are directing to whatever focal point it is that we are tuning into. So, whether we're observing the breath, whether we're observing a mantra, a candle flame, whether we're creating a mental image and observing that in our mind, we're doing it from the part of us that observes everything. So, a simple exercise that you can do right now with me to identify your observer is wherever you're sitting, just become fully aware at the moment of the soles of your feet. So just take a moment and just notice how it feels on the soles of your feet. You might notice that you might have a carpet beneath your feet. You might notice how that feels. You may have laminate flooring that will likely feel totally different. But whatever the material is, wherever you are, just notice at the moment how the soles of your feet feel. Now move up to your face. Close your eyes if you want to. This isn't a meditation, this is just a very short exercise, but just now notice your lips touching. Just become aware of how it feels. And when you're doing this exercise, you're not judging anything. You're not deciding whether you like or you dislike how something feels. You're doing nothing more than notice, than observe, than become aware of. So now you're just noticing that your lips are touching. Now I'd like you to let go of that and move on to feeling, becoming aware of, observing. All meaning the same thing when I say that. Your hands touching. They're not touching, just place your palms together and just feel. Just notice that feeling of the palms touching. And you feel the little fingers touching. And now just be conscious about putting the tips of the little fingers together. Just noticing that point where the two little fingers touch. That point there. Really, really small little area. Just notice it. And you can relax and open your eyes if your eyes were closed. But what you can notice there is that there was a part of us that we moved from the feet to the hands to the face or to the lips. That part of us was observing what was going on in the body, and we were able to move that part of us around the body and become aware of different areas, tune into, narrow down the window of our awareness. Now, we have access to that ability all the time, but when we're going about our day, we're often obviously aware of maybe the things we're engaging on the laptop or whatever the job is that we do. We're engaging in our attention, our observer is moving around. And very often, our observer is engaged in thought. The observer is tangled up in our thinking process. So, what we do when we meditate is we really take the observer, that part of us that is able to witness what's going on. It's neutral, it doesn't have any kind of judgments. All of the judgments that we engage in are coming from the mind. But we use that observer and we take it away from our thinking process and we place it on something like the breath or a candle flame or a mantra. And we just observe that. And we essentially take ourselves away from the thinking process. And what this does is it then slows down the thinking process because we're not giving that any energy. So in time, we start to reduce how many thoughts we end up having, basically, where the amount of mental activity that we have starts to subdue because we're not fueling it. So, this is a term that's often used within Buddhism. It's called craving and aversion, or another way of describing this is our likes and dislikes. Now, as human beings, we've kind of trained ourselves in a way to fall into the habit of either craving something or having aversion towards something, liking something or disliking something. It's a habit that we've picked up. But the part of us that we're trying to step back into when we meditate, the observing part of us, our awareness, is totally neutral. It's totally impartial. It doesn't have a like or dislike. What we do in meditation is what I call neutralize the mind, or in some ways, you could say stepping back from the mind. Because we have this tendency of falling into craving and aversion, when we're sitting down to meditate, if we have an experience that we really like, we might feel a bit of peace or a bit of bliss building up in us. Have there's a tendency to crave it, to want it more, to get attached to that. And as we know, anything that we become attached to, anything that we kind of crave, we are then giving over our freedom to that thing, because to some level that thing is then determining how we feel in any one moment. So if we're really craving something, we're essentially saying, I'm not quite happy now till I've got that thing that I'm craving. So we give up, in a way, our current contentment and give it over to this thing that we're craving. Likewise, when we have aversion to something, when we have a dislike to something, we then become a puppet to whatever it is that we dislike. And until that thing that we dislike is gone, we are not fully content in ourselves. And you can see this quite often in daily life. Some people will have likes and dislikes towards things like the weather. And so their inner state, their state of contentment, their state of happiness is determined by what's going on outside of them. So the control is not within them. Whereas if you get good at not being drawn in by likes and dislikes and being able to observe impartially, then whatever's going on around you, whether it's raining, whether it's really sunny, whether something bad has happened in your life or what you'd perceive as bad normally, whether something amazing has happened, your internal state is not being changed by that. And that means that you are in control at all times. It means you're finding this beautiful balance. And this is what we really train when we meditate. You find that every time you sit down, when a thought comes in, try not to fall into the habit of pushing away, not pushing away in terms of bringing yourself back to the focal point, because that's totally normal. When we recenter ourselves in meditation, we do it impartially. We don't fall into, I don't like that thought, therefore I'm bringing myself back. And equally, we don't fall into, I really like that thought, I wish I had more of it. We just impartially, with this balanced and neutral state of mind, let go of the thought, guide ourselves back to center. Let go of the thought. Obviously, you go through the process I've explained, which is become aware, acknowledge, etc. But we don't fall into becoming annoyed, craving, or pushing away these different experiences that we're having. We try to find this neutral, void-like space within us. And when we're in that space, we can't really be affected by these things that are going on around us. And the same can be said if you feel any physical pain. So if you feel any kind of like aches or pains or discomforts in the body when you're sitting in a certain position, providing it's not like proper pain that you need to, adjust yourself. If it's just like a few aches here and there, try your best to use this way of behaving. Try to find that neutrality. Try to observe it impartially and say, and the mind will want to push away pain. The mind will want to say, I don't like pain. But that is a creation of our mind. That is a tendency that we have fueled, a habit, if you like. Whereas if you actually really train it, you can learn to look at pain and discomfort and say, okay, I notice that that's happening, but if I step back out of this mental tendency to push this away, I can just observe it. I can just observe it without saying that I like it or dislike it. I can just observe it. And there's so much power in that. You'll find that when troubles arise in your life, if you ever injure yourself, if you're going through some kind of health problem, you'll be able to look at it impartially. You'll be able to look at it and say, and not get drawn into liking and disliking. You find that you can step back and just observe what's going on. Just observe. This is what we're trying to really get towards when we meditate. It's very powerful. Okay, so here you can see we have the three stages of meditation. And these are the three key stages. First one is dharana, the second one is dhyana, and the third stage is samadhi. Now, all of us, when we first start meditating, we're going to enter into dharana. Dharana means to fix the mind. It means to intentionally recenter the mind. Because what happens when we're going about our normal day is that our mind is doing what it wants. It's going over to one thought, it's going to the past, it's going to the future, it's engaged in life, it's engaged in our sensual activity, it's outward projecting, or it's entangled in thought. So, what we do when we meditate, whether we're meditating on a candle flame, a mantra, the breath, a mental image, we simply place the mind where we want it to be. So, we observe the breath, in this example. And when we wander away from observing the breath, we become aware of it, we acknowledge it, and then we recenter ourselves. And we keep recentering ourselves until we develop a good level of concentration. And this concentration, once we start to be able to recenter ourselves and recenter ourselves more quickly, is probably the best way of putting it. Once we get to that point, we are entering into dharana. This is the first stage of meditation. So if you're brand new to meditation, this is where you're going to be working. You're going to be working to start to fix the mind into one point, to start to intentionally recenter the mind and not allow it to run away and go where it wants to go. After this, you'll move into dhyana. Dhyana is a state where rather than concentrating and recentering yourself, you become more absorbed. So you're not then having to intentionally recenter yourself. You're finding yourself just naturally being able to observe this one-pointed focus without recentering yourself. You're beyond the mind. You've kind of moved one step past this mental activity and you're not getting drawn into it. It might be a background sound. You might hear this kind of internal monologue, this internal voice appear from time to time, but you're not getting pulled away. You're very much engaged in the focal point, and you find when you're in this state that it's actually very easy. It comes very naturally, and there's no effort required. If you find yourself falling off of the focal point, it'll be for a split second, and you'll be back again, and it's effortless. And this is when you know that you're in a state of dhyana because you're focusing without really trying to focus. It's very natural. You feel absolutely absorbed in the focal point, and there's something within you has moved to another level. It's very apparent when that happens, and that is when you're making really good progress in meditation. There's no time that I can give to say that, after a certain amount of time, this is when you'll reach this stage. Everyone is totally different. For some people, this can happen really quickly. For some people, it happens and then it goes away. It's all a state. It's all, it's very much dependent on the individual. So you just have to keep working in the dharana, in recentering yourself, and eventually you'll get to the point where this happens without you really trying, and it's called then dhyana. From dhyana, once you've developed this concentration, you have to keep pushing and keep pushing. This eventually will lead to a state of samadhi, which is total unity. This is basically when the subject, i.e. yourself, and the object that you're focusing on, so it could be the breath, become one. There becomes no separation between these two. In dhyana, there will still be a sense of you, and there will still be a sense of you observing a object, so the breath, for example. When you get to a state of samadhi, this sense of self disappears, and this oneness, this unity comes about. And this becomes even more effortless then to remain focused. There is no focus. This is really a true state of meditation. Before that, the stages of dharana, it's not it's not really, you couldn't really describe it as meditation. It's more concentration. Dhyana becomes an absorbed state. So that's like effortless concentration. Samadhi is really what I would describe as true meditation. That is when you are no longer in control and something beyond you is has graced you with the gift of samadhi. This is when you are no longer trying. There is no effort involved. There is no you to have effort, if that makes sense. There's no you to put in effort. There's just this oneness, just this unity. A very profound state. And there are also thought to be different levels of samadhi as well. But I won't go into that today. The main thing is that you're aware that there's 3 different stages of meditation, and you're going to be, hopefully in time, working through all of these different stages. I wanted to talk as well about connecting to a higher power. Now, I know I've said at different points throughout the course that I didn't want to make this very spiritual, and I'm not going to go too heavy into the spiritual side of things because there's a potential for lots of different types of people doing this course, and I want everyone, as best as I can, to be comfortable with what we're going through. However, if you are someone that has a belief in something beyond what you can see, if you think, yeah, I believe in the universe, I believe in a higher power. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to call it. I don't care about calling it anything, but I believe in a higher power. I would encourage you, if you're that type of person, to really pursue that belief and that sense of that intuitive sense that there's something more. And I'd advise you to use meditation as a period of time where you connect to that thing. And you can call it what you like. You can call it the divine. You can call it a higher power. I don't care for any particular name really. But meditation is like a period of the day where you're crossing the threshold between your body consciousness, your physical self, and your spiritual self, or your higher consciousness, or your divine self, whatever you want to call it. It's the process of moving from body consciousness into transcended consciousness or into unity consciousness. It's all different words for the same thing. So we're kind of connecting with our higher self going through the process of meditating. But you can enhance that process. You can make it smoother by consciously asking for help and guidance when you sit down to meditate. And the way that I do this is I will sit down to meditate, sit down in my position, and I will inwardly, and when I say inwardly, I mean using my internal voice, not saying it out loud, I will ask for help and I'll connect to what I call the divine. And I'll say, please, could you help me to understand more in this meditation? Please, could you help me to go further? Please, can you show me where I need to work? Show me where my character defects are. Please, can you, and I'll say other things like help my girlfriend. Please, can you help my family? Please, can you help people that are struggling at the moment? Please, can you help us as a human race to achieve world peace? Basically, without it being in a religious sense, I pray. I connect to my higher consciousness and I ask for guidance. And there might be some people here that say, well, why would you do that? Because you are the divine. There's nothing outside of you. And I agree with that. We are all divine beings. Everything is one. There's nothing that's not that thing. There's nothing that's not that higher power. But I don't know myself as that yet. I know myself as being a limited individual in terms of my consciousness. I have my own thoughts, my own desires, and I'm not omnipresent. I'm not aware of other things going on outside of my own experience. Whereas the higher power that I'm talking about, the part of me I'm talking about, is aware of all of that. So in a way, I give over my 30-year-old intellect and I ask this infinite source, this higher power, to be my guide, to show me where I need to go. Because I don't know. I'm a human being. I don't really know anything. Most of us think we know a lot, but we don't really know a lot. And so we give over. It's a case of surrendering our individual consciousness and saying, there's a higher power. I believe that, and I'm going to let that steer me. And you might find that you intuitively have a sense of where to go or what to do, or maybe the right book falls on your lap, maybe the right conversation comes about. Maybe the meditation becomes a little bit easier for some reason. But in any case, I've only ever had positive outcomes from doing this. And you know what I always say to people, if you don't believe in a sorry, if you do believe in a higher power and you're totally wrong, even the placebo effect of having that belief is actually really helpful. Personally, I feel like I've experienced a lot of benefit from having a belief in a higher power. And if I'm totally wrong, then I'm still glad that I had the belief because it's helped me in like a placebo way. I'm certain there is, based on my meditation experiences. I'm absolutely certain, but it's up to you what you believe. I thought I'd add this in there. Equally, I want to caveat this with, or finish this with, if you don't believe in a higher power, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to go through that process. This is just for people that do. So, moving on to resistance. Now, this is something that no one really talks about when it comes to meditating, and I'm really uh, like kind of I really want to get this point across and be really clear on this because I think this will help you a lot. If you go to the gym, when people go to the gym, it's totally accepted that your muscles are going to burn, that you're probably going to be breathing quite heavily. You're going to have some level of physical discomfort, and it's accepted. People know that. People even work towards that because they're like, when I'm tired, I know I'm growing at that point. I know I'm in a place where I'm actually benefiting from this. But people don't take that same mentality when it comes to meditating. When people get bored, when people get frustrated, when people get restless, or they have negative thoughts, or their mind is wandering, people go, "Oh, I can't do it. That's me. There's something wrong. I can't meditate." Now, I want to encourage you to change that mentality and know that when you feel like that, when you feel bored, when you feel frustrated, when you feel restless, or you have negative thoughts, or your mind is wandering, I want you to look at that as if it is a signal of growth, that you should know when those things are happening, that you are in a place now where you're in slight discomfort, but that is positive because it means that you are going to grow. You are stretching your current limits. You are at some stage, I can guarantee it, going to feel bored when you meditate. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel a bit of impatience. You're going to feel restlessness. You're going to feel or have, sorry, negative thoughts. Your mind is going to wander. No matter how good you get, no matter how often you do this, these things will happen at some stage. And I really encourage you to change your mentality towards them if you've not got this mentality already, and just see those things as a signal of your growth. See them as a positive thing because they will come. And if you can adjust the way you look at them, you will move through them much easier. So many people meditate for some time and then they start getting bored or frustrated and they give up because they think something's wrong. And it's totally the wrong way of looking at this. I've had personally great success by shifting my mindset and seeing all of these things as a signal of growth, just in the same way that you would see burning muscles or heavy breathing when it comes to exercise as a signal of growth. And really, when it comes to meditating, our job is to learn to remain equanimous throughout whatever happens, whatever experience comes our way, whether we have a really unbelievable experience, whether we have an intimidating experience, whether we have pain or discomfort in the body, whether we feel really blissful and euphoric. Our job is to learn to remain equanimous. It doesn't mean that we can't enjoy our experiences when we're having nice experiences, and it doesn't mean that we don't feel what we're going through if we're having negative experiences. What it means is that we learn to not get drawn in to this kind of, again, craving and aversion. We learn to remain equanimous through whatever happens. We develop this state of mind that is unaffected by what's happening in our experience. We just observe. We just fall into this void. We fall into equanimity. We just are unbalanced. We're unaffected. And this is really a profound a profound state to find yourself in, or a profound state of mind to train, because it affects everything in life. And finally, I have these affirmations here. These are personal prompts that I use to really overcome procrastination. And they help me so much at times when I really can't be bothered to do something or I'm being a bit lazy. And the first one is: commitment is doing the thing you said you'd do long after the mood you said it in has left you. And I just love that, because I think we can all relate to times when, we say we're going to do something, and then the next day when our mood has changed, or when the weather's not so good, or we're feeling a bit different, we then don't want to do the thing. And if we fall into this habit of only doing what we want to do, or based on our mood, we'll never be committed. We'll never be consistent, because our mood is obviously always changing, generally speaking, even if it's only a small amount. Some days we don't feel quite as good as others. This is normal for us. But if we decide and choose to do things based on that, then we're going to be very inconsistent. So I always remind myself of this quote, this saying, that commitment is doing the thing you said you'd do long after the mood you said it in has left you. And the second affirmation that I use, very simple: do it now. The amount of times that I'll be, I don't know, in bed, and the alarm's gone off, and I've let it go too long, and I'm contemplating whether I should get up or not. I just repeat that to myself: do it now. And that gives me enough of a boost, enough motivation to get out of bed and go and sit down and meditate. And there's been many other occasions and scenarios where that has really helped me. So I wanted to share that with you. If you're struggling for motivation, procrastinating, repeat that mantra, that affirmation rather, to yourself: do it now.